For many years, if you were in the market for a professional Mac notebook, your options were relatively simple. You had the mainstream 15-inch PowerBook G4. It was the default answer if you needed a pro computer you could take with you. And then you had the cult classic 12-inch option, a computer that most people today would still say is the best Mac notebook ever made. But if you needed the most power, the most real estate that you could take with you, you bought the 17-inch. The 17-inch PowerBook was introduced at Macworld 2002. That cannot be right, let me see. Now the 12 and 17-inch PowerBooks were introduced at Macworld 2003, and they flanked on either side of the titanium PowerBook at 15 inches. Apple would get around to revising that machine, but that's a story for a different time. Now the 17-inch PowerBook was a tour de force of technology from Apple. It introduced lots of new stuff like FireWire 800, 802.11g or Airport Extreme in the kind of Apple's language. It also brought a brand new design. And if you used a PowerBook or even a MacBook Pro before the unibody machines, you know what this machine looks like. It's made of aircraft grade aluminum according to Apple. It has silver keys. It has ports both down the left and the right hand sides with the optical drive out front. One thing Steve Jobs really drove home in his keynote was the backlit keyboard. It was the first time Apple had shipped anything like it, and coupled with an ambient light sensor, the user didn't even have to know how to adjust it. The computer would take care of itself. Now, one of the best things about owning a notebook is being able to take your work with you wherever you go. But if you have a 17-inch PowerBook, certain accommodations need to be made. An average laptop bag or purse or anything is not going to be big enough for this computer. I recommend using a suitcase. Sure, you can use it to travel, but if you have a 17-inch laptop, you're going to need the space. There are a couple accessories you always want to have with you. You're always going to want to bring a charger. The battery life on these things is not very good. In fact, if you buy a big enough suitcase, you can get some car batteries wired in for some extra time. Open this thing up here. Another important accessory is having a lunch tray. These PowerBooks run really hot, and you want to make sure you have something in between the computer and you so you don't get scalded. So I've got my trusty lunch tray. Of course, here's my computer itself. I'm going to get rid of this suitcase. And you'll see that the laptop is basically the size of the tray. See, it's like they're designed for each other. Now I can open this, I can get my word processing done, I can write my email, surf the web. But I'm not going to do that because I'm alone right now and no one knows what I'm working on. And that's a dangerous situation to be in with a 17-inch laptop. You can be trapped very easily. You want to make sure you never have an aisle seat on an airplane because people are going to need to get up and get down and you're going to have to move, and that can be troublesome. You got to call a stewardess to come help you. If you're traveling by bus, maybe just rent a van and take that. If you're home alone or in the office alone late, make sure someone knows where you are and you have some sort of buddy system. So someone can call and check in on you and make sure that you're okay. And if you don't show up on time or you don't make the phone call, they can call the fire department and come get you out. That case design would stay intact all the way through 2009 when Phil Schiller introduced the unibody 17-inch MacBook Pro.
And I'm really proud to be the first to show you the new high end of our line, the 17-inch MacBook Pro. It's absolutely stunning. It's super thin, 0.98 inches thin. That's the world's thinnest 17-inch notebook. At 6.6 pounds, it's also the world's lightest 17-inch notebook. And it's simply stunning.
Now, it may have looked like the 13 and 15-inch unibody machines, but if you flipped it over, you would notice there was no battery door. It was a sealed-in battery, and I remember people, including myself, freaking out about this at the time. It was unheard of. You had to be able to put a different battery in your notebook. But Apple said they could get away with it for two reasons. One, the battery life itself was much better, up from 5 hours to closer to 8. But more importantly, the battery itself would last longer. At this point, a typical battery would get maybe 300 cycles in and start to degrade. But Apple said due to a lot of smart technology, including like adaptive charging and some communication between the battery cells themselves and the system, they could get 1,000 cycles out of this battery. Now, you can't buy a 17-inch MacBook Pro today. As Apple transitioned the line to using Retina displays, the 17-inch was quietly discontinued. think there are probably a couple of reasons for this, but the biggest one I would imagine is that it just didn't sell very well. In my years of working as a Mac tech, I only saw a handful of these things, and I had customers who were the most hardcore professional users. Some would say that there's a lesson here, that Apple slowly whittles away at the edges and just kind of hones a product for the masses. And the 17-inch MacBook Pro honestly is probably an early example of that. Thanks for checking out the video today. If you have questions about the 17-inch PowerBook or MacBook Pro, leave them in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to see more, and I'll see you soon. Adios.